What's going on, everybody? Sports Guru Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station. Hope everybody had a really strong weekend. A lot going on this weekend. A little chilly at times on Sunday and today, but getting through it here. Very close to Thanksgiving break already. It's crazy how time's flying by here, but a lot to get into today on the Sports Scoop with Nathan Schivins. Thank you all for listening in. Obviously, the Steelers improved to 6-4 in Sunday's game against the Cincinnati Bengals. But there's big questions now about Aaron Rodgers, that left wrist, his availability for the next Sunday Chicago Bears game, which is going to be a big game for the Steelers. Every game from here on out is a big game with the Ravens on a heater. Only one game back in the division now. So I'm going to talk about the Steelers, what I saw in that game yesterday, Sunday afternoon against the Cincinnati Bengals. Going to talk about College Game Day and the Notre Dame Pitt game, which Notre Dame dominated. It was a dominating effort by Notre Dame. I'm going to get into that from the Notre Dame side, what it means for Notre Dame, for the Pitt side, what it means for Pitt, what it means for Narduzzi, because that was an embarrassing result. Also going to get into some other NFL on a great Sunday, some really, really good games on Sunday, which haven't been the case, really hasn't been the case throughout this season. So, and also some college football a little bit. I was at game day and I was at the Pitt game. I didn't see too much college football this week, but going to get into some of that as well. But a lot of NFL and Pitt, Notre Dame today on this show. I'm going to lead with the Steelers. As I every week I usually lead with the Steelers. One, because they're the biggest brand in the city, and two, because it just happened yesterday on Sunday, the game. The Steelers win 34-12 against Cincinnati. An overall solid performance. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers are driving at the very end of the first half. Rodgers throws up a pass. I think he was trying to just get it out of the end zone, incomplete. And it almost was caught. I mean, it was crazy to imagine if that was caught. But it goes out of bounds, and Aaron Rodgers gets tackled to the ground. Lands on that left wrist. Cincinnati Bengals defender lands on him. He lands on his wrist. And it turns out he has a broken bone in his left wrist. And he missed the second half. Obviously, Mason Rudolph did a very, very solid job in his absence. The defense got some turnovers and directly turned them into points. And the Steelers have a fairly resounding win. An important win because we know what happened last time the Steelers faced Joe Flacco and the Bengals this season. And also because the Ravens won. So you keep that one-game lead, and it almost was two after that 4 o'clock window. The Browns gave the Ravens everything they could handle. Shedeur Sanders coming into the game for the first time, and wasn't great, but people are kind of, hammering him and criticizing him. He didn't play well. He didn't play well, but he was thrust into that situation against the Ravens with a bad O-line, with no first-team reps. All right, those aren't excuses. That's painting the picture of what the situation was. So was he not very good? He was not very good. But you have to take into consideration the circumstances here. It'll be interesting to see if Dylan Gabriel, that concussion, keeps him out of next week's game. If Shedeur plays, how he plays. That'll be very interesting to see. But back to the Steelers. Running the ball pretty well. Jalen Moore, I think he's all right. They were, in that first half, he was running all over that Bengals defense. And Kenneth Gainwell, he's a solid player. I mean, he really is. He's a solid backup. He got some nice gains. Caleb Johnson had his moments a little bit with Jalen Moore and out. So that's encouraging. But the big story offensively was not only Rudolph doing his job, keeping this team afloat, not only afloat, I mean, they really added on to their lead with Mason Rudolph, but Darnell Washington in this game was tremendous. He's so hard to tackle. He's such a weapon for the Steelers offensively. And, I mean, it's so hard to tackle him. I mean, obviously the one play where he breaks 2 tackles and knocks the other secondary player for the Bengals out of bounds, I mean, it was tremendous. But on that 3rd and 17, he gets the ball, and it was terrible defense by the Bengals. They are just so bad defensively. He's wide open 8 yards down the field. He just was running, and then they tackle him, but he's able to get a few yards while they're trying to wrap him up, and he ends up falling forward for a first down that led to a field goal. So Darnell Washington had a really nice game. A lot of contributors. I didn't get to watch this game live. I watched it last night because I was working camera for some soccer championships here at Highmark Stadium. But that was an encouraging performance from the Steelers. A lot of people, there's a little bit of unease about this game. I mean, you get blown out by the Chargers, you get blown out themselves against Jacksonville. We'll get to that in a little bit. But how is this team going to respond? And are they going to put up a bunch of points, this Bengals offense, against the Steeler defense? Well, the Steeler defense, for the most part, held up pretty well, did their job, forced some turnovers. That's what the Steelers are going to need. Obviously, they gave up 12 points, which on the surface is pretty good. There was some bend but don't break in there, which is usually where it is with the Steelers. Nick Herbig had another good game, 6.5 sacks this season, doing very well. Nick Herbig, he's just all over the field. He's doing a great job, but encouraging performance from the Steelers here. Obviously, we're waiting on the Rodgers injury, and he wants to play so bad against the Bears. That's a home game at Chicago for Aaron Rodgers. He really wants to play in that game, but we'll have to see. The good news is it's to his left wrist. It's not his right wrist. If it were his right wrist, there's almost no chance he'd be playing. I think there'd be no chance. But it's to his left wrist, his non-throwing hand. Now, that still could cause some issues. But we've seen Rodgers have some kind of hand-wrist problems this season. If you remember a couple weeks ago at home, before the game against the Colts, he was grabbing his wrist. I can't remember if it was his right or his left, but there's been some reoccurring issues there with the wrist hand area for Rodgers. Hopefully that's not too serious, but all around, I think you're looking at Chicago. That's a winnable game. You play the Bills at home. That's a huge game. Are the Steelers going to be able to contain Josh Allen is the question. I think it's going to be very difficult based on what we've seen from this team. And then you play at Baltimore, the first of 2 meetings between the Steelers and Ravens. And that'll be interesting. I still think the Ravens, as evidenced by this game yesterday, they're still not quite the dominant force that they were, in years past and at full strength, like we've seen them and we've been accustomed to. Something's a little bit off with Lamar. That defense, you could still get them for some things. You could still move the ball a little bit. But that'll be a tough game nonetheless. Both the Ravens games are going to be tough. You still play Detroit. You play the Dolphins at home. That should be a win, certainly. You play at Cleveland later. That should be a win, but it's always tough going to Cleveland here late in the season, cold. Cleveland with a really good defense. We saw Baltimore. They could have very well lost that game. If Dylan Gabriel's in that game, who knows? I mean, the Browns might have been able to keep moving the ball and even pull out a win there, but it's going to be tough for the Steelers. There's a lot of tough games, but they'll either prove themselves and that they actually are a contender, or they will kind of be so-so and be the same old, or they'll just completely fall flat on their face like last season, and you're in a really bad spot. And maybe you don't even go 9-8. Maybe you're under 500, which would be, it's unheard of with the Steelers, but who knows? This is a very pivotal stretch. This was a first step here after the Chargers loss. you got to keep stacking wins, good performances. That Chicago game I think is very winnable. Congrats to the Bears again winning, at Minnesota. But they've had some fluky wins. Their defense is not very good, which makes it all the more not impressive that J.J. McCarthy had a very bad game against the Bears yesterday as well. But you play the Bears, that's a winnable game. Bills at home. The Bills on the road have been not very good. So is that a winnable game? I think it is a winnable game just because that Bills defense hasn't been great. And Josh Allen on the road has turned the ball over a little bit. That offense hasn't been the same. I don't know about this Bills team. It's just a weird team. But I think the Ravens game is winnable if some things go your way. And if Lamar Jackson is a little so-so like he's kind of been so far since he's returned. But at Detroit's going to be very tough. You play the Ravens again. So we will have to see with this Steeler team what they're made of here, because there's been a couple encouraging performances here consecutively for your defense. Is it as they've been elite? No, but they've been getting the job done for the most part. I was shocked that I heard they were second in the league in sacks. I think it was going into the game yesterday, which surprises me because it feels like they haven't gotten to the quarterback much at all this season. But they had like 32 sacks going into yesterday's game against the Bengals. I was shocked to hear that, but I think Kyle Duggar has been a big difference. I mean, you gotta love Jalen Ramsey. I mean, he's just all over the field. He's hitting the guys. He's tackling hard. He's talking trash. Obviously, the Jamar Chase situation. You see Jalen Ramsey punch Jamar Chase. He gets ejected. You're like, Jalen Ramsey's out of control. What is going on here with Jalen Ramsey? He's going to be suspended the next game. But then you see afterwards, they asked Jamar Chase. Jalen Ramsey says Jamar Chase spit on him. And, he's had some expletives in there and said, you can't do that. All bets are off. When you do that, when you spit, it's very disrespectful. It is. And they asked Jamar Chase, did you spit on Jalen Ramsey? He said, no, I didn't spit on him. But he was kind of hesitant in his answer, and you're kind of like, that wasn't the most certifying answer there. But then you see the video where you slow it down, you zoom in, he clearly spits on Jalen Ramsey. So he could be suspended the next game, and Jalen Ramsey probably won't be suspended. So there's an interesting wrinkle there with the Steelers, and a good thing there because Ramsey at safety, I think everybody likes him there. I like him there at that safety position. Kyle Duggar has been very good, very solid in that safety. He's really stabilized that because one, Thornhill was not good, you could tell. Chuck Clark, what are we doing? What are we doing there? And, you got to give credit to James Pierre. We got to give credit to James Pierre. He had a good performance filling in for Darius Slay. I mean, Darius Slay hasn't had a game as good as James Pierre did against the Bengals here. So, good performance by James Pierre. Got to tip the cap. But Joey Porter made some plays. I think for the most part, the Steelers did a good job defensively. Wreaking havoc. There was some running. There were some big gains running the ball for the Bengals, which has become a theme a little bit. They've given up some runs, the Steelers have, in that interior, kind of right up the middle, getting blocked, which isn't the greatest to see. But yeah, I mean, that pass rush for the most part, it's been okay, been all right. Talked about Nick Herbig. Alex Highsmith didn't play in this game. T.J. Watt was there a couple times, got that bogus roughing the passer. I just hate how the NFL's moving here with these roughing the passer calls. I mean, you can't touch a quarterback without the flag being thrown. I mean, what is T.J. Watt supposed to do in that situation? He tackles him. How is he supposed to go sideways with it? How is he supposed to spin around? And I mean, you're making it so hard on these edge rushers, these defenders, to make sacks. And there was one called on Cincinnati that I didn't like either on Rodgers. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, the criteria is all over the place. Again, it's not football. I know you're trying to enhance the safety of the game, but the T.J. Watt sack, I mean, he fell on him, yes, but he didn't have his whole weight on him. and there was almost no chance of injury or anything with Flacco, even though he is up there in age like Aaron. So I really don't like that. But Watt almost got another sack. Flacco was able to escape. He did a spin move on Mims and got to the inside of that line, and his momentum was forcing him the opposite way of where Flacco was going. He reached out, and Flacco was able to move to his right just so slightly, so TJ didn't get the sack there. But he's made a little bit more of a difference recently. He was a complete no-show for a lot of the season after he signs the big contract. But for your Steelers, 6-4. I was looking earlier today because you're going into the season, we're all saying, like, this is a tough schedule. And I looked at the games that the Steelers would have been favored in going into the season and what their record would have been hypothetically compared to now, what it actually is. And we've thought, they've had a lot of missed opportunities. They could be 7-3, even 8-2. Like, obviously the Bengals game is a run that really sticks out, that first one. But I was looking, I counted 5-5, 5 wins going into the season. I thought the Steelers, I thought they'd beat the Jets. I thought they'd beat Seattle. I thought they'd lose to the Patriots, lose to the Vikings, beat the Browns, lose to the Bengals on the road anyway, because, going into the season, you thought that was Joe Burrow, right? Losing to the Chargers, winning at home against the Colts, it's 5-5, and they've gone 6-4. So now the circumstances changed a bit, which is why you wanted to take advantage a little bit more than you did. But also, Seattle was a better team than I thought going into the season. I'll be the first to admit it. I thought they were a solid 9-8 kind of team that fights for the playoffs in the NFC, but they've been awesome this season. Really, I'm going to get to them on the other side of this break coming up here, but they were really good. They are really good this season. So that's one of those games you're just like, okay, you tip the cap to Seattle. But to this point, 6-4, it's not the worst thing in the world. They're not going to be, if they win the division, they'll be the 4 seed. Do I think they're going to win the division? I've been on this for 3-4 weeks now. I still think the Ravens are going to win this division. They're a game back. Steelers play the Ravens twice. The Ravens have an easier schedule down the stretch. But hey, Steelers can prove. They got the 1-game lead. If you beat the Ravens, there's the head-to-header initially. If you beat them the first time, and who knows? But usually the Ravens and Steelers split, unless there's the annual Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson hurt, Tyler Huntley situation. But it's going to be down to the wire, I think, again in the AFC North. It feels like almost every year it is. So we'll be looking forward to that here. Obviously, you'd like the Steelers to secure the division. They were they were going to be 5-1. You're looking at it. They're 4-1. The Ravens 1-4, and then 1-5. You beat Cincinnati. It's a 4-game lead, and they were unable to do that, and it slowly made its way to a 1-game difference. So that's where we are at the Steelers. I'll be talking about them a bunch more in the weeks to come. But a ho-hum win yesterday. But coming up on the other side of this break, I'm going to be talking about the rest of the league in the NFL, scores from this week in the NFL. Sports Guru Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM. And welcome back to the Sports Guru Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station. Talk Steelers in the first 20 or so minutes of the show here. Now I'm going to go through the league, through some of the games. Again, we're not going to talk about Dolphins, Commanders too much, Jets, Patriots. These games are, I woke up early on Sunday and I was like, what the heck, I'll tune into Commanders, Dolphins, and boy, oh boy, that's bad football. There were some moments, but overall, these are just not good football teams. The Dolphins, congratulations. 16-13 win over Washington. Commanders just been injured so much this season. It really sucks for them because they were on the ups, and now they're kind of at a crossroads going into the next season. Patriots beat the Jets 27-14. Jets were never really in it. The Patriots had them at arm's length. Really, the whole game. Justin Fields now is getting benched. He wasn't even terrible in this game. I mean, I thought he was okay. He just has not thrown the ball for many yards at all. And so Aaron Glenn's making the move to Tyrod Taylor, who's would have been earlier in the season, maybe a couple weeks ago, if Tyrod Taylor was healthy. But now they're going to make that move. Patriots, they're looking really good right now. 9-2, on track for potentially the 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, they've had a great season up to this point. They play at Cincinnati next week. Jaguars. How about Jacksonville? 35-6 over the Chargers. The terrible towel disrespect curse is real. Chargers disrespecting the terrible towel after their demolition of the Steelers last week. Well, you mess with the towel, you get the horns. That's what they say. I just made that up actually, but they were just a complete no-show. 8 first downs in this game. I don't even know what to make of this game. And I mean, 135 total yards for the Chargers, 8 first downs. Herbert 10 of 18 for 81 yards and 1 interception. I mean, what in the world? That's one of the more embarrassing games I've seen here. Trevor Lawrence wasn't even great, but threw for 153 yards and a touchdown. And Jacoby Myers, 5 receptions for 64 yards. The trade acquisition by Jacksonville, it's already paying off. Jacksonville 6-4, Chargers 7-4, and I just don't think they're any good. I was saying last week that was a kind of fluky win for the Chargers, even though they kind of blew out the Steelers. I thought defensively they were really good, but they just got some turnovers. You know, some of these tipped interceptions, the punt return fumble. There were some extra possessions for the Chargers that made that game less competitive. So they get destroyed by Jacksonville. Jacksonville 6-4, and you're looking ahead with Jacksonville. They're at the Cardinals next week. You can't trust Jacksonville. They're the most unpredictable team. But they play at the Cardinals, at Tennessee. They get the Jets later. The Titans the last game of the season. So, I mean, that could be 4 wins right there. That could put you at 10 wins. And that could be enough to make the playoffs. So, who would have thought? So, there we go, Jacksonville. Chargers at 7-4. They play the Raiders next. That should be a breeze. But they play the Eagles at home. They're at the Chiefs, at the Cowboys, which is, if they play like they did against Jacksonville, they get blown out in that game too. They play the Texans, who are still going to be fighting at the end, and they play at the Broncos. So it's going to be tough for the Chargers down the stretch here. How about the Bills? Josh Allen, 6 total touchdowns, 3 rushing, 3 passing. He is Superman. And the Bills, I mean, they're still very shaky. Gave up a bunch of yards, bunch of points to Tampa. Baker Mayfield, got to give him credit. But the Bucs are just so depleted on both sides of the football. So, really necessary win for the Bills there. They sit at 7-3. Got the Steelers in a couple weeks. They're at Houston on Thursday night. That should be an interesting game. Texans got themselves back to 500, 5-5. If the Texans lose that game, I mean, every game for the Texans almost going forward is a must-win with the hole they dug early in the season. But a nice win for the Bills and Josh Allen, a necessary win. But again, something's just kind of off with the Bills this season. Talked about the Bears. Talked about J.J. McCarthy here. I mean, 16-32 for both players were 16-32, but McCarthy threw 2 picks. Talk about not turning it over. Those 2 turnovers kind of pivotal in the game. The Vikings are just not doing anything offensively. J.J. McCarthy, I mean, I've been saying it for a while. I don't think he's that guy. Caleb Williams didn't have the greatest game either, but that Minnesota defense is hard to deal with. They get the win. They're 7-3, and they play the Steelers next week on Sunday. Aaron Rodgers is going to try to play, and that will be a very interesting game. I mean, can you imagine? Bears win that game, they're 8-3. I mean, who would have thought at this point of the season? I mean, I thought they might win 8 games all season, and they could already almost be at 8 wins. So, J.J. McCarthy, I still don't think is the answer there for the Vikings. This is a game, you're kind of wishing right now, if you had Sam Darnold, imagine where the Vikings would be this season. But Sam Darnold's cooking with the Seahawks, and the Vikings are sitting at 4-6. Texans pull out a win against Tennessee. A very subpar showing from the Texans, who are, I think, still are without C.J. Stroud. Davis Mills, I mean, threw for 274 yards. The Texans outgained the Titans by almost 100. But, the Titans are just no good. And it's just a necessary win for the Texans, who I mentioned. I mean, they have a tough schedule remaining. They play the Bills. They're at the Colts, at the Chiefs, at the Chargers, host the Colts. There's a lot of tough games left for Texans. If they make the playoffs, they will have earned it. So they sit at 5-5. Tennessee, just a disastrous season for the Titans. Not too many people showed up for the games either here. How about Bryce Young? Panthers 30, Falcons 27 in overtime. Bryce Young yesterday, 31 of 45, 448 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's his best game in his career. I mean, that is tremendous. In a game that the Falcons really had to win to stabilize their season. Michael Penix Jr. gets hurt, and he might be out for the season. Kirk Cousins is just not that guy anymore. And Panthers get a huge win. I mean, they could be 7-4 right now instead of 6-5 if they just take care of the Saints at home. I mean, Bryce Young, he's been having all these games where he just throws for 110, 115 passing yards, and then he erupts for 448 in this game. And I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, 199 against Dallas, 138 against the Jets, 102 against Green Bay, 124 against the Saints. I mean, and then 448. That the last 4 games combined, he has only a little bit more than that in passing. So, unbelievable game from Bryce Young. And McMillan, the rookie wide receiver out of Arizona, he had a big game as well. He's 6th in the football in receiving yards. I didn't even know that. That's crazy. So a big win for the Panthers, and Falcons are done this season. That's been confirmed here with the injury to Michael Penix Jr. if he is out for the season. Packers, very important win to stabilize their season against New York and Jameis Winston. Jordan Love gets hurt, leaves the game, comes back in the game, and Packers, who got outgained by the Giants and outplayed in many facets, but they get the win. Jameis Winston, a bad interception. But Jameis is just great. He brings that energy, and you love to see it. And tough season for the Giants. I still think Brian Dable should be coaching them, but hey, got to win some of these football games. So the Packers get a big win there. Still a lot of questions with this team. Looking at the 4 o'clock, 4:25 window here. A couple really good games. Seahawks 19, Rams 21. The Rams beat the Seahawks. And you know what? My initial reaction and takeaway is Seattle looks like they are the best team in football. I know they lost this game, and Sam Darnold threw 4 picks. Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions, and the Seahawks were a field goal make away from winning the game. I mean, they outgained the Rams 414 to 249. Stafford has been really good all season, 15 of 28 for 130 yards. I mean, about as good a job as you could do on Matt Stafford. And you hold that defense for Seattle is just really, really good. You hold the Rams in check. I mean, if I'm a Seahawks fan, I'm thinking if Sam Darnold could just calm down against the Rams and stop throwing these. He was forcing passes yesterday against the Rams. If you just don't force these passes, play your game, play like you've been playing all season, and the Seahawks are going to have good fortunes against the Rams. I think the Seahawks are really, really good. I think the Rams should come away from this a little worried because, hey, we played a pretty good game. We didn't turn the ball over. We forced 4 turnovers, and we won by 2 and could have lost that game. So I think if you're Seattle, I wouldn't panic about this loss. I don't think people are. But I think Sam Darnold just calmed down here against the Rams. Obviously, remember last year in the playoffs when he was with Minnesota, they really were making him see ghosts almost. But for Sam Darnold, just calm down. Make your reads. Make the easy throws. He was just forcing the ball. A lot of those picks were just he was forcing the ball into places that weren't. There wasn't an opening. Take the check down. Make your reads. But he didn't really do that at times, and that kind of cost the Seahawks. But if you're a Seahawks fan, like you're looking at that defense. I love that defense for Seattle. And you got a wide receiver 1 in Jackson Smith and Jigba. You got 2 pretty good backs. Kenneth Walker's obviously the lead back. I mean, I feel good if I'm Seattle after that performance. After 4 turnovers and having a chance to win the game. How about little Brock Purdy? Little Brock Purdy, he defeats the Cardinals in his return, 41-22. I don't know what. This is a weird game. Jacoby Brissett threw for 452 yards. I mean, 47 of 57 for 452 yards. But the Cardinals turned it over 3 times. They had to throw a bunch because they were down big the whole game. Brock Purdy was solid. Christian McCaffrey was solid. George Kittle leading the way. Again, the Niners, that defense is so injured right now, but they're playing bend but don't break, and 17 penalties for 130 yards for Arizona. That's going to lose you games, and that was one of the contributing factors here. So nice win for San Francisco. They're 7-4. They got Carolina next week on Monday Night Football, and they got Cleveland, the Titans, Colts, Bears, and Seahawks. So there's some tough games mixed in there, but they look like a playoff team certainly in a competitive NFC. Ravens 23, Browns 16. Mentioned this game a little bit earlier. The Ravens, they were down a lot of this game. Dylan Gabriel was doing a solid job. He usually does. He's not spectacular, but he's pretty solid and steady. He gets the concussion when the Browns were up 16-10. Browns defense is a force to be reckoned with. But the Ravens are able to get a couple turnovers, or get the 1 turnover on Shedeur and capitalize. And the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, 2 interceptions in this game. Not ideal for him. Got to limit the turnovers for sure if you're Baltimore. But, 187 total yards for the Browns. A lot of that was Shedeur being, again, thrust in there and not doing a very good job. But Ravens get out of Cleveland with the win, a big win for the Ravens to keep pace with the Steelers. So we'll see if Shedeur gets more action going forward. What do you have to lose? You've seen what you have with Dylan Gabriel. Okay, now let's see what Shedeur Sanders is as a Cleveland Brown. I would do it, honestly, if I were Kevin Stefanski, probably. Unless you want to keep being solid, mediocre with Dylan Gabriel. So, who knows? Who knows what? Maybe Stefanski likes Gabriel. I don't know. But Chiefs 19, Broncos 22. You got to tip the cap. I got to tip the cap to the Broncos. I've been harsh on them a lot of the season because they've had some fluky wins, some unreasonably close games against bad teams. Obviously, they beat Houston when C.J. Stroud gets hurt. They were able to win that game. They were losing when C.J. Stroud was in. Talk about the Raiders game. You talk about the Giants game. Even the Eagles game. The Eagles kind of handed the Broncos that game, and they almost didn't win it. That was a bad performance by Philadelphia in that game. But the Broncos were able to win on the road. But this was one of those wins for Denver that could catapult the season. I think they've almost certainly got the division locked up now. I don't think the Chargers are anything, and they have a 2-game lead over them. And the Chiefs now have 5 losses, so unless you lose 3 or 4 games and the Chiefs win out, like the Chiefs aren't winning that division, which is crazy to think. I think I had Denver in the playoffs. I can't remember before the season. I'm fairly certain I did, but I had Kansas City winning the division because, I just until I see it, I was just going to go with Kansas City, but now I've seen it, and it's a tip of the cap to Denver. They had one of their better performances all season, made it really difficult for Mahomes down the field, a lot of dink and dunk, the huge sack on Mahomes late in the game to force a punt and to really secure the game for Denver with the field goal. Bo Nix was solid, put up good numbers, and the big key was no turnovers for Denver. They if they had to punt, they punted and relied on that defense, which is elite, don't get me wrong. My questions with this team have always been Bo Nix and Sean Payton and that offense gelling together. But that defense is spectacular. And they get a big win. They get a huge win, and they're trying to get the 1 seed in the AFC as well. I mean, home field at Mile High late in the season in January in the snow and in the cold, that would be a big advantage in the altitude. So, very big win for Denver. Bo Nix had one of his better games this season, honestly. He's been really wobbly at times, but huge win for Denver. I was thinking, even the first half, I was like, Kansas City, we're just waiting for them to get going, and they just never did. And Denver gets the win. And are the Chiefs going to make the playoffs? I mean, I think they are. You'd figure they are, Kansas City, but they're 5-5 now. You got to ask the question. I mean, they've lost 2 in a row. They play the Colts at home this week. The Colts are playing with a lot of confidence. That should be a very interesting game. They're at Dallas. They host Houston. They play the Chargers, Titans, Broncos, Raiders. So there's a lot of winnable games there. But who knows, when you're at 5-5, your margin for error is a lot slimmer. And so we will figure with Mahomes, with Reed, with that team, Spagnuolo, that they're going to get the job done. But you never know. And then Eagles defeat the Lions. Lions they move the ball, but the Eagles just in the red zone and on their side of the field just stoned the Lions, prevented them from getting anything into the end zone for the most part. I mean, they were incredible defensively, the Eagles, hounding Jared Goff at all times. Jahmyr Gibbs had a couple big plays in the passing game, but he didn't really run for much. And when it got down in the red zone, the Eagles stiffed up, and they were able to get a win. I love what the Eagles' defense is doing right now. They look tremendous. And the offense is still a work in progress a little bit, we see in the last couple of games, but or really all season. But just hand the ball off to Barkley, get it to A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, and punt the ball if you have to, and let your defense take over. That's the key for Philly. So they get a nice win there to move to 8-2. It's crazy they're 8-2, and people are questioning them a lot. So, and then tonight we got Cowboys-Raiders. I think Dallas is going to win that game and just outscore the Raiders. I'd be shocked, honestly, if the Raiders win this game. They've been abysmal this season, a real joke, if I'm being honest. So I feel like that's a Dallas spot to get their 4th win of the season. I mean, if not, it could get ugly quickly for Dallas, because they got Philly, they got the Chiefs, they got the Lions, they got a lot of tough games coming up. So that's what we have for the NFL for Week 11. And coming up on the other side of this break, I'm going to talk the Notre Dame Pitt game and a little bit of college football, but mostly that game to close out the show. Sports Scuba Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM. And welcome back to the Sports Scuba Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station. Once again, thank you for listening in here on a Monday afternoon. Notre Dame 37, Pitt 15. a huge win for Notre Dame that almost certainly locks them into the college football playoff, in a game that destroys any of Pitt's chances of being an at-large college football contender. If they're going to make the playoff, it's going to have to be through winning the ACC. And first, I want to give absolute credit to Marcus Freeman, that Notre Dame team. All business. This was a business trip for them. Marcus Freeman, we were at game day, me and my buddies, and we're watching the big screen, and they're showing Marcus Freeman walking into the stadium, and he's looking all dapper, a two-piece suit. I mean, he's motivated. You can just see the look on his face. He's like, we're coming in here to blow you out. And I'm like, we're all looking at you, and I'm like, Pitt's losing this game. You got that feeling. Narduzzi's coming on game day. He's saying a bunch of nonsense during the week. He's eating food on game day an hour and a half before the game. Marcus Freeman's all business walking into the stadium. The Notre Dame players before the game were saying, they don't respect you. They don't respect you. As a kind of a motivating thing. I think the team respects Notre Dame and everything, but when you say something like that, Narduzzi, we could lose by 100, we don't care. It's going to come off really poorly with Notre Dame players, with the coaches, and their fans. And what a performance by Notre Dame defensively. Pitt just had nothing. That first drive, there were moments and everything, and you were feeling like, okay, like, oh, look at this here. And Mason Einschel completes a couple passes, but I think Poppy Williams, the huge drop down the field, if he catches that, it's a very catchable pass. You catch that, it's 1st and 10 at the 12, I think, and you're really, if you punch it in, that's a huge statement for your team to start the game. Instead, he has the drop, the O-line, which was a theme all game, did not hold up. Heinschel gets sacked, and Pitt has to punt. We see Notre Dame early on with Jeremiah Love getting that big touchdown run. And then Heinschel throws the pick six. And you're down 14-0 in the blink of an eye. And that just kind of sealed the deal there. It felt like there was just no coming back for a freshman quarterback, a play caller who it seems like is over his skis, and Cade Bell. And an O-line that was certainly over their skis, out physical. They're just, Notre Dame just has bigger players on the front lines, on that O-line and on their D-line, than Pitt's O-line and Pitt's D-line. And Pitt's D-line was for the most part okay. They stopped the run outside of a couple runs for the most part, but it was kind of underwhelming performance there. I thought the secondary was pretty solid, actually. Rashad Battle gave up a couple. Tamon Lynham did as well, but for the most part, there were some great catches by Notre Dame players. I think it was more, I don't even think the defense played terribly. There was some, jumping off sides on key plays, and there were some penalties, but for the most part in this game, what did pin in was the lack of explosiveness offensively. It was, they really shouldn't have had any touchdowns offensively. There was the pick six, then they go for two, and that really epitomized the game. They go for two. Heinschel throws an interception, and the Notre Dame player runs it back for 2 points themselves. And that just epitomized what that game was looking like for Pitt. It felt like they weren't ready, especially offensively, but really defensively as well, for the shiftiness of the Notre Dame running backs. They weren't ready for the defensive schemes that Marcus Freeman was going to throw at Cade Bell and that Pitt offense. It just didn't feel like they were ready and up to task in a game of this magnitude. Narduzzi apologized after the game, but I thought it was a little hollow. That loss to me is on Narduzzi, on that coaching staff. Those comments set the tone, I feel like, in this game for Pitt. And they were blown out at home in a game that was sold out. I was at the game. Pitt fans were fired up. A lot of students there, a lot of alumni, a lot of fans. And there were a good amount of Notre Dame fans, but I was impressed with the showing from Pitt fans at game day in the stadium. It was just an all-around really good feeling kind of game, or kind of atmosphere and everything. And then you get the game where Pitt kind of has a no-show performance. And it just really can't happen. Narduzzi now 0-5 against Notre Dame, and only 2 of them have been remotely close. I mean, obviously there's a talent gap, but you have to make that up with coaching, with putting your players in the position to be successful. And I just don't think Narduzzi did that. I don't think Cade Bell did that. This O-line makes it really hard against the best teams. That's why I just don't think Pitt's there this season. I mean, they really, in this offseason, have to shore up that O-line, get bigger players in the O-line, get bigger players in the D-line. Because, I mean, you can bring in Kendall Stanley from Charlotte. You can bring in Keith Gouveia from Richmond. You got to, at some point, you get Jeff Percy from Michigan, but at some point you got to get more of these Power 4 kind of linemen who are, I mean, even not like Group of 5 linemen who are big. You need big physical players, because you look at Lyndon Cooper, he's shorter. B.J. Williams is a shorter guy, and Ryan Baer is just not that great overall. And I just thought it was impossible for Mason Heinschel to get anything going. He was seeing things a little bit. These linebackers, they were disguising stuff. I was saying going into the game, Notre Dame's going to throw a lot of things at Mason Heinschel. He's seen Florida State's defense, which isn't very good, Syracuse defense, and he struggled against them, and they're okay. Stanford defense, which is horrible. NC State's defense was horrible. So this was the true first test for a really, really good defense. And he looked like a true freshman. And so I don't blame Heinschel for this. I thought there was a scenario where this could happen. But I just thought they weren't prepared. I think you have to run the ball more early on in that game. And they just, Cade Bell sees Heinschel all over the place a little bit, and he decides to pass it even more. I really just don't like that. But all credit to Notre Dame. I mean, they can talk, trash all they want. I mean, they deserve to. They have the right to after that performance. And the Notre Dame fans seem nice. I mean, in person and everything. Online, they're a little cocky and arrogant, but I thought, at the game they were pretty nice people. And they liked the atmosphere. They liked the fans, the Pitt fans, and everything. It was kind of a mutual liking going into the game, and then Notre Dame just showed why they're Notre Dame, and Pitt under Narduzzi is just not quite there. But still, for Pitt, you're looking at a really pivotal game this weekend. Pitt at Georgia Tech, Saturday, 7 o'clock, ESPN. Very winnable game for Pitt still. You got to look ahead. You got to look forward. You got to pivot. Even though that's really a deflating loss. You can go one of two ways. You can just pout and say you're done. We're done here. Or you could say, hey, that leaves a sour taste in our mouth, that Notre Dame game. Let's give it everything we have against Georgia Tech and win this. Make it to the ACC championship and win this conference, which is not good at all. I mean, we've documented it. Everybody knows it. The ACC is very weak this season, and I'm not even mad at the people who are saying the ACC shouldn't get in. It's just not a good conference this season. I mean, Pitt and a lot of teams have feasted on the bottom of this conference, which is really 8-9 teams deep, the bottom. And so I still think Miami's the best team in this conference. I think if Miami beats Pitt, they and they're 10-2, they have a really good argument to make the playoff. Probably won't make the ACC championship. That would take a lot. But I think Miami's the best team in the conference. But hey, if Pitt can have that performance, an A+ performance against Miami, they can win that game, and they could be that team in the ACC. So everything's still in front of Pitt in terms of ACC aspirations, but no at-large possibilities for Pitt. Really just a poor week for Pitt athletics. The basketball team gets outclassed by West Virginia. It was a bad matchup. I'm not really too surprised by the result. You got true freshmen, Mari Witherspoon, Roman Salupa, these big contributors. Even Brandon Cummings, Indricitis. Indricitis is basically a freshman. He hasn't played in that environment other than in garbage time for Iowa State. You just had a lot of young guys, and you had DeMarco Minor, who's playing his first time in like Power 4, Power 5 college basketball as a guard. I thought he was a little rushed at times as well. It's a good learning experience for Pitt, I think. It was West Virginia. They brought in the North Texas head coach for basketball, and he's the real deal. North Texas is one of those teams. They don't score too much, but they defend like crazy. And West Virginia was all over it defensively against Pitt. It made it really, really difficult. So not the most surprising. It was a bad matchup early in this. I think later in the season it would be a much more competitive game. But Pitt just a lot of turnovers, a lot of bad mistakes from the young guys. But a really good learning experience for Pitt. They played tonight against Bucknell, I believe. So can't have that carry over. I don't think it will. But you talk about the Pitt basketball, the men's team, the women's team yesterday loses to Division III Scranton at home. That's inexcusable. I mean, that's just a terrible loss in a season for Pitt women's team. I mean, they haven't had too many seasons with any hype going into it. But you talk about the five, so you get a 5-star, you get a couple 4-stars in your recruiting class. You're feeling good if you're Pitt. Positive momentum. Won't be a great team in the ACC, but compete and win some more games. But this is not a good start for Pitt. They lose to Drexel at home. They barely beat Cornell, and they lose to Division III Scranton at home. I mean, just really, really bad week for Pitt. And Pitt volleyball, they lost at Stanford, I believe, on Friday. They got the win yesterday, but that was a tough game anyway. So a lot of losses for Pitt athletics over the weekend. Penn State football got a nice win, 28-10 over Michigan State. They're a good football team still. They just lost a ton of close games. They have the talent, certainly. And this Grunkmeyer, Ethan Grunk, he's not terrible. He's not terrible at all. He had a solid game. So good for Penn State getting their first Power 4 win of the season. They're trying to get to bowl eligibility at 4-6. They could certainly win the last 2 games. So, and then West Virginia loses a tight game to Arizona State on the road in football. They are 4-7, I believe, and they host Texas Tech next weekend in Morgantown. So, hey, imagine if West Virginia went out with a bang and beat Texas Tech at home. It would be really tough. It's going to be a really tough game for West Virginia, but they've been playing better to end the season. This Fox kid, he's not terrible. And they've gotten some wins going forward. So, other than that, college football, Oklahoma beats Alabama. They got outgained by almost 200 yards, but they capitalized on Alabama mistakes. At Oklahoma, they do a great job of doing that. They're well coached, and they have an inside track to make the playoffs now, especially with Texas losing to Georgia, getting blown out by Georgia, 35-10, and they get their 3rd loss. They're not a playoff team. I mean, that's solidified. They're not beating A&M, first of all. And they're not – they're going to have 4 losses anyway. But even if they're 3 losses, they shouldn't be considered, in my opinion, over any 3-loss teams in general. But even over like a 10-2 Utah or BYU or whoever, they just haven't clicked all season for Texas. So they lose. Big win by Georgia. Kirby Smart, what a coach. Alabama, really, they just haven't really clicked this season. They've been really, really good at times, but past couple of games they're scoring 20 points barely, and they're having a hard time offensively. And Ty Simpson hasn't been the greatest. So compare that with like an Ohio State, who's just moving along, blowing teams out. They look really, really good. Indiana won 31-7 over Wisconsin. A&M, what a comeback by A&M. Sleepwalking through that first half, taking South Carolina for granted. They have a very convincing win They have a very convincing second half, a dominating second half. And if you're Shane Beamer, you cannot lose that game. That is a terrible performance by South Carolina in the second half. So Miami dominated NC State. Georgia Tech barely defeats Boston College. Georgia Tech, like I'm saying, their offense is good, but their defense is atrocious. So this is not going to be a huge test like Notre Dame for Mason Heinschel. I think if he's mentally right, he's going to have a bounce-back game, certainly against Georgia Tech. Virginia, congrats Virginia, they knocked Duke out of there. There's no possibility of a group of five team, a second group of five team, being in front of the ACC now, with Duke losing. Now, if you're Pitt, you hope you win the last two games, and then Virginia and SMU, one of them loses somewhere, which is very possible. But Virginia, they look good. They look good on Saturday, so good for them. But yeah, Louisville loses to Clemson. They're done. They haven't looked great all season. So yeah, that's what we have. And then looking forward to next week in college football. USC Oregon's a big game, which I'll recap next week's show. But that'll do it for this week's edition of the Sports Scoop with Nathan Schivins on WPPJ 670 AM. Thank you, everyone, for listening in here. Be back next week for more, and we'll see if the Steelers get a win and Pitt gets a win, although I saw a thing the last time the Steelers and Pitt had starting quarterbacks with the same name. It was Ben DiNucci and Ben Roethlisberger, and the Steelers lost to the Bears, and Pitt lost to Georgia Tech. How about that? That is crazy, but we're hoping that there is a reverse in that trend this weekend. But it should be a lot of fun, so thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Sports Scoop with Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM.